Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of VCTV. As I mentioned earlier today, this is a double packed episode day again here on VCTV, as we've been doing every single day this week, as so much is happening here as we round out and coming into that second half of 2020 or second half of the year. This is important for founders. This is a very, very important time if you're looking to fundraise or you're looking to build. This is the busiest time of the year for investors. You already know this, but you also know this is a great time for opportunities. There's some great companies, but sitting in the middle of all this is all this change. It's constant change around technology and around industries. We just talked a lot about what's happening in the industry of 4.0. So industrial 4.0, the next wave of where things are moving at the level of infrastructure. And one of our key themes throughout this was about education. The methodology, the mindset, and the education, and how those are so important to making that industry thrive the way that we've all thought and dreamt it would become, and as it's starting to digitize. Now, all of that brings us to today's topic. Today's topic is around education itself, education as a whole, and then education technology. We all know that over the past year, education itself has been digitized and gone through a digital transformation more than we ever expected. What does that mean? For those that are building, where are the opportunities? Where are companies building? For those that are investing, where are the opportunities to start investing? Where should you be paying attention to? What themes should you be mindful of? Either direction. We're going to unpack all of that. We're going to see how education is changing, shifting, what's to come, and what's here now, along with the technologies that are powering it. So get ready, grab your seats, grab your coffee, grab your tea. We've got a ton to talk about. And we've got some of the best and brightest who are going to share not just their thoughts and insights, what they're seeing from a technology level, but also some of the lessons learned from the investments they've made in the space. And audience, a huge thank you as always for joining us here on VCTV. And to the investors tuning in, if you'd like to be on a show like today, or other episodes around different technologies, regions, industries, do reach out. We'd love to have you. Entrepreneurs, this is not just for us as investors, this is for you too. There's a virtual stage here. You have the chance to get up and pitch us as investors, your company, your product, your service, along with our live audience. So give us a shout out. We'd love to have you on the show. Reach out to Elena, to the LATOKEN team, and or myself, and we'll find the right spot for you. And a huge shout out to Elena and the entire LATOKEN team for making VCTV possible every single day, multiple times a day to your screens, your devices, anywhere you may be around the world. With that, let's dive in. Let's talk about education. But before we get to it, let's make sure everyone gets their introductions in, because there's a ton of background and a ton of history here that you guys need to be aware of, and it's relevant for your follow-ups afterwards as well. So Prasan, welcome to the show. First time here with Elena and I. We'll let you kick it off. Intro and background, please.
Hey, great. Kyle and LATOKEN, great to be here. So we are an EdTech startup based out of Singapore, Pune, India, and in Boston. And we are basically moving into digitally facilitated learning. So today everybody's on Zoom. So what happens during Zoom? We know that it's training, people are talking, the teacher's teaching. But what happens before Zoom, during Zoom, after Zoom? How do we shift to a facilitated model where a lot of people are interacting together? And because in Zoom, only one person can be speaking. So who is that person that's going to be speaking, right? So how does the facilitator call out that person? So something that they have done before and things that they have to do after. Now our background is basically, we were funded by the Singapore government to introduce this concept of learning circles, which actually originates from Sweden, a concept called study circles, which has been prevalent there for over 100 years. So the Singapore government said they wanted an unstructured format of learning, and we basically digitalized this model of study circles and launched it in Singapore a couple of years ago to sit next to the structured learning that happens with the Ministry of Education there. So that's a little bit of the background. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Prasan. Excited to hear a little bit more about that methodology and why you guys went that direction. But first, Tarun, welcome back to the show. This is a key topic and subject for you with a ton of background, but I'll let you share the introduction, a little background on yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Kyle, again, for inviting me here. And thank you to Elena as well. My name is Tarun Sakani. I'm the founder and CTO of Abundant, which is a big data analytics and digital transformation company. And we specialize in all things IR4, essentially the 9 original pillars that were envisioned. We are also an EduTech, EdTech company. So 50% of our kind of revenue stream derives from EduTech, EdTech. And we focus on a blended learning model. So this basically encompasses, digital online training, individualized kind of training. And the second part of it then is the workshop-based, the group-based, which is actually conducted face-to-face, right? So that's not digital, but actually in a classroom setting. But again, it kind of mirrors what we've seen in Finland and other countries that are practicing these type of unstructured learning models. So it's like Socratic method plus group workshop driven learning. And yeah, that's pretty, my background personally is I was a lecturer, university lecturer. I've been a corporate trainer, public trainer, podcaster, very unsuccessful YouTuber. No, I just started. So yeah. So that's a little bit about me.
Wonderful. Well, welcome back to the show. We're going to help your YouTube game today, make you look good, get you some extra content for that, because I know you'll do a great job. But next up, I want to welcome Naved. Naved, welcome back to the show. It's a pleasure to have you. A little background, a little intro.
Hi, Kyle. Thank you for having me once again on this show, and thanks, Elena, for arranging this as well. It had been the last time that I spoke. I represent our ventures. We are an investment platform for raising funds for startups, sector agnostic, up to $25 million. We run our formats, a couple of formats. For a smaller ticket size raise, we have angel investment platforms. And for higher ticket size raise, we run our mandates through closed door to all the institutional investors. So the larger investors are also participating. So far, we've helped around 43 startups raise funds, and not surprisingly, 8 of them have been into the EdTech space. And like you mentioned earlier, EdTech in India is booming, absolutely booming. Thank you so much for having me once again.
Absolutely. And we are definitely diving into that as we have on other shows, just touching around it with gaming and some of the areas of where technology is playing. So get ready. William, welcome back to the show. A little intro, a little background.
Hi guys, I'm William Du from Engineers House based in Kuala Lumpur. Okay, we are a financial services company. We do corporate finance work such as fundraising, IPO, and M&A. I have an education business. We actually provide TVET, okay, the trainings and vocational education. And we have a culinary school. Okay, we have a creative language center. And recently, my partner actually took over a human capital association, chartered Institute of Human Resource Center in the US, and we converted into a university. So we named the university called Wilmington University. Okay, so that will be an online university. Okay, so we are actually developing the courses now, and we'll provide a US certification to the global audience. Okay, so we are trying to adopt EduTech now. Okay, yeah.
Wow. All right. So not only a lot to share, but also a lot to learn from some of the integrations that you guys are testing out. So tons to talk about there, William. Giampaolo, welcome back to the show as well. Little intro, little background.
Thank you very much, Kyle. Welcome everyone. And good day to the LATOKEN operation. I'm an investor and a serial entrepreneur. on the board of several companies around the world. When it comes to technology, I have three main clusters of experience. One is I've been 10 years as a principal in a VC firm in Silicon Valley. Second one is at present, I'm a partner in an Indian limited partnership investing in microcap and nanocap technology companies, all of them. And third, I'm the founder of an amalgamator that basically is a tech platform that put together a number of tech companies with purposes of cross-pollination, cross-fertilization, raising together and reaching, I would say, adequate critical mass to be on the market. Back to you, Kyle.
Wonderful, and welcome back as well. Last but not least, Noble, welcome back to the show. Little intro, little background.
Hey, nice to see you guys. Several people here, and nice to see you, Kyle. My name is Noble Dracone. I am the founder of Dracone Capital Partners. I've been involved in both the investment space and tech for the last 26 years. When I got back involved in the tech industry about 4 years ago, our focus was in augmented reality and virtual reality. And as we've seen the evolution of communication and interaction, we've really started to double down in our focus and figuring out applications to use our patents for education and how to include people across the world in being able to teach and interact and to kind of get away from the screen-based learning. I'm also an advisor for maccelerator.la. We're accelerator/incubator. We're fairly agnostic. We're in the middle of a $40 million raise to support those who've come through our cohorts to help them develop along multiple lines, including EdTech. So glad to be here.
Absolutely. Welcome everybody, guys. There's so much to talk about here. Let's start with a big question. I've already got some follow-ups with it as well, but what is the current state of education and education technology? So when I say that, I mean, where is education today and how is technology playing a role in its digitization here as we look towards the coming future? Prasant, let's start with you, first time guest. So where do you see the current state of education and how technology is driving it forward or holding it back?
Right. So I think there are a couple of things. One is that a lot of content went into e-learning. So e-learning was kind of the big thing that's been a driver in corporate learning, in individual learning. So video-based kind of consuming data, information, and just validating retention on that. So that's been the primary usage of the content for learning. We can see that on LinkedIn Learning or Udemy. Those are primarily video-based. Coursera, a lot of lectures, and then consuming that data. So I think that's been the primary EdTech that I've seen until now.
And Tarun, to you, where do you see things as the current state of education and technology today?
Well, I mean, I think a lot has changed, historically speaking, right? And I think it started really with Khan Academy, and introducing this kind of model of online-based learning, along with peer-to-peer based learning, right? And I think it just kind of snowballed from there, into edX and Udemy and everything like that. And so these companies have been there for quite some time, right? I mean, they had a certain amount of traction, but in terms of like market share or mind share, that they really hadn't captured the attention of the masses. And I think that that's starting to change now because people are looking at these as alternatives. And I think the biggest change that I've ever seen is what has happened with the Google certification program, which is, you go through like this 4 or 6 month program, whatever it is, and forget about the 4-year degree, So you go through that and then you get a $50,000, $60,000, dollar job in Silicon Valley or wherever, Probably not in Silicon Valley, probably somewhere else. 60,000 is not going to be much.
But it's an accelerated program. I mean, going to a 4-year university, for instance, to learn something that you're able to Prasant's point, tune into in a very quick snippet and quick basis, that changes the landscape of how we look at education, thanks to technology, right? That rapid access to your point. as well. And Naved, I want to come to you next. I mean, you're in India. We've talked about this before, but furthermore, what are you seeing as the current state of education right now?
Well, state of education in India, let me just put some numbers to the audience today. There are 1.5 million institutions in the country and more than 350 million plus students who are studying currently in the country. Talking about EdTech startup scene, more than 4,500 EdTech startups have been launched in the country. Close to around 1,200 have already shut their shop. The fact remains that 3/4 of the EdTech startups are still running. They're being acquired. And the recent one being the White Hat Junior acquisition by Byju's. Of course, there is a lot of excitement that is there in the Indian investment market for the EdTech space because only 200 of such startups have been funded so far. Interestingly, the GMV that these EdTech startups in the country have is northwards of 150 million. So yes, obviously the business is promising. And most recently, while the government also changed its 40-year-old national education policy, and the recent focus has shifted not only from the roto method, it has moved on now to the skill development method. And obviously, the next 5 years in the EdTech space are going to be an amazing story for the Indian subcontinent.
Awesome. William, to you, I mean, what are you seeing as well in the same industry and even just from KL? I'll turn it over to you.
Education for now is very, very different because for the last 6 months, okay, my children actually studied through Zoom. Okay, this week is the first week they go back to school. Okay, and of course they are happy they are able to meet with their friends. But in a way, you can see education now is very different because it has to be deployed fast. And I'll give you an example. My friend developed a course. He's a photographer, all right? So he used to have big cameras, and he used to use film, okay? And then it becomes digital camera, right? And now nobody even buy camera. Everybody just look at a mobile phone, right? You have all sorts of things in your mobile phone, okay? So what he did is, instead of going through a diploma or certificates of going through photography diploma, or what he did is he squeezed everything into 5 days, 4 days on his platform, okay, through Zoom or through the YouTube, and 1 day practical where they get everyone into a room, okay, where they actually teach practical stuff. But instead of going through a 6 months to 1 year of courses, it was squeezed into 5 days. And after 5 days, you are able to go to the market. You can become a qualified photographer. They give you an industrial diploma. All right. So instead of going through system like business courses, if you study business administration, it takes you 3 to 4 years, right? And now what we are trying to do is to squeeze everything into 3 months. And after 3 months, you can basically use the skill you have learned, okay, and start working or start a business, okay? And now you think about MBA, okay? You pay 100,000 US, okay, to go to the Ivy League universities, okay? And that, once you get a cert, you start applying for a job, or you hope to get a better job or better pay, okay? But nowadays, if you look at a young generation, everybody is starting a business, and they might have 3 or 4 different businesses through e-commerce. Either they are KOLs, okay, or they are doing auction online, selling online. All right. So the world is different now. Okay. So we are trying to see what will be the next generation of students who are willing to actually forget about the basic degrees or certification and go straight to practical learning. Okay, where they can learn something fast and then they go to market fast as well.
Well, we're also seeing many businesses, to Tarun's point, who that once used to matter, now it doesn't, right? If you have the education, you have the knowledge, and maybe it's coming back from a certain program, whether that's Google's program or Udemy and others, that you have, again, the knowledge. It's not so much that that core of where it comes from. Noble to you.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead. No, sorry, go ahead, William. Go ahead.
No, my friend just attended the Alibaba Business School.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what they did for a week, They basically teach you how to set up shop online. Okay, on day 2 of the course, he's already doing business. All right, so that's how fast people can start a business nowadays.
Already making money to repay the money you just spent,
Yes, correct.
which is good versus delaying it. And there's some good use cases out there of that model changing as well, which we'll come back to. Noble, to you, where are you seeing the current state of education technology right now?
Yeah, I did my first investment course where we sold videos and tapes back in 1996, 1997. And so we were teaching people how to trade options and futures and commodities. And so there's always been this space for adult learning that's always existed. We talk about Khan Academy, but realistically, YouTube has always had a significant educational component. Most people were either training people how to work out. I learned how to cook some of my best dishes off of YouTube. So, we've always, since the advent of the internet, there's always been some kind of educational component. Even when there was, I don't know if anybody remembers the old BBS bulletin board networks. We were downloading, the anarchist cookbook and stuff off the internet that you couldn't find regularly, PDF files. So there's always been an education component to the internet. I think that what we have to do is segment out like the 3 components of it, right? We have people who are, K to 6, K to 5. You've got the, middle schoolers to high schoolers who have different needs. And then you've got college, and then you've got adult learners. And so there's opportunity along the spectrum in which you can actually fulfill the needs of everyone. With college students, almost $1 trillion in college loan debt in the United States, the ability to get to the marketplace or workplace fast is important. A lot of people were very, very upset that college kids are spending, to William's point, is 100,000 in MBAs, but just 60,000 for a bachelor's degree that became stale. It was ineffective in the marketplace, and you would end up with basically a minimum wage job unless you got an MBA or something of higher. So, we've had a great pivot along the spectrum. Where we tend to focus a lot of our energy is more on the school age side of it, where there's a lot more opportunity to kind of smooth over the issues that a lot of the kids are having, particularly now and headed into the future, in trying to navigate kind of a Zoom life, right? Right now, my 9-year-old is on Zoom right now as we speak, doing his class. And it's going to look that way for the next 6 months to a year. Unfortunately, they're dealing with multiple platforms, 3-4 different platforms to communicate and try and get themselves, sorted out between the teacher and the students. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity in smoothing over all the problems of having this ubiquitous landscape of various portals and submission of homework and grading that needs to be fixed, because otherwise, even if the little kids aren't taken care of, there's no way they'll ever get to the second and third phases of their educational program. And, there's been a huge pivot and shift in what's happening right now in trying to figure out a way to make that time frame less onerous. My nieces are now 6 hours on the internet on doing Zoom. I love seeing all you guys, 6 hours of us doing this. I'm not quite sure that works. And I think that, stepping into the space or the realm of augmented reality and virtual reality starts opening up, I believe, the realms of fatigue, the eye fatigue, the inability to kind of sit here for long times. We already had kids who they said the attention deficit was going down to that of a level of a goldfish because of all the interaction with the TV and the iPhones and the like. So how do we engage and keep people interested when they're at the young age so that we can continue to have productive workers or later on? So overall, I'm positive. I believe it's great. I think what's happening is great. I just think there's a lot of problems to solve.
We're going to come back to that engagement in just a moment. But Giampaolo, what are you seeing as the current state of education and technology?
Well, I would go zoom back actually as an investor. I would say that I like to identify the critical areas first, because from the critical areas, you can see what are the trends. And from the trends, you can see what companies could cater to those trends. You see where the momentum is going to be. And I see that even in the developer world, we have discovered with COVID in the US, but also in the European Union, in the wealthiest part of the European Union, we have found pockets of students, even in the US, that lack the hardware at home to do really what they need to do, remote, learning. So I think that's so simple, but need to be addressed. The hardware is missing. Somebody should deliver. I could imagine someone inventing a company like Uber and leasing, the hardware to the governments, so that they can be distributed freely to those students in those remote areas or less fortunate areas or less fortunate social clusters that need this, because this is the basics and we should not forget it. And if this applies to areas of the richest parts of the world, you can imagine also in emerging economies and frontier countries. So this by itself is something that would, fill the gap, fill the divide. I think we need to have it in place because it's so obvious and so big that we cannot recognize it sometimes. The second area is the retooling of the teaching methodologies, and technology can really do a great deal on it. And also the shaping from scratch new methodologies altogether, because the instruments are just a means to an end. It's just a conduit to where the content must flow from the teachers to the students. So the methodologies have to be there. Technology can really increase the quality of the techniques that are utilized to distribute this content. And third area that I see as a key area is also, after the retooling of the instruments, is retooling of the teaching body, because not all teachers are adequately prepared to teach online. It's a totally different thing. It's like if you've been on stage or if you never played on stage. It's a totally different thing. You can play in your room, piano, guitar, it's something. When you're on stage in a concert, it's a totally different thing. And not everybody perform on stage as well as they would maybe in the intimacy of their room. So, also teachers have to be retrained. Again, technology can help a lot because it could prepare more complex syllabuses and courses for teachers to get into it, and maybe even on a self-education style. So there's a lot of things, we're using application on our smartphones for what have you. I think you could use also maybe applications for teachers to get better at what they're doing already and get better at doing it digitally. And the fourth area, and for schooling more than for universities, I think it would be really the possibility of finding ways for kids to keep socializing anyway, because I realize that probably the space in which technology would be less of a proposition item, because obviously you can change the fact that there's a physical distance, and if you are at home you can't really socialize like you do socialize when you're in school. But I think that technology, somebody can think about something to, let's say, allay some of the concerns and the fears that educators, parents, and every stakeholders in the education system has of the fact that should this state of affairs be protracted for an indefinite period, definitely the lack of socializations that the children and the students will have an impact on their further life down the road, on the way they interact in the future in a working place, in their relationships with a spouse or significant others. So there is already enough clouds out there that I think there could be a market for futuristic companies that want to deliver some content in that space. When it comes to the university, I see a different set of issues, but then probably this will leave it for another time. I wrote an article about that as well, that I see the demise of the university as we have known them, because most universities are not equipped to deliver content which is in line with the pace of times. But again, there's a lot of us on the panel, and I don't want to take too much time. So back to you, Kyle. On that.
No, it's okay. I'm actually going to come back to that. So would love to hear that. Would love to see that article. We can share it with the audience as well. But I do have a question kind of leading on to that. And what is it kind of goes into these new models. So Tarun, I want to start with you. You touched on this is, there's the Google certification program. What other models are you seeing kind of arise, new business models arise around education thanks to technology as well? So Tarun, I'll start with you and then I'll come around.
Well, we've seen the rise of micro-credentialing and nano-credentialing as a kind of replacement in some cases, or a supplement to traditional education. But I think what has happened, since the COVID crisis is that a lot of companies now are looking at micro-credentialing or even nano-credentialing as the appropriate way to upskill and reskill, and the preferred route to upskill, reskill. Now, maybe some years ago, people would go back for a master's, right? Yeah, so no one's doing that. I think that's what's changed. So, for example, I'm involved in some of the micro-credentialing programs here in Malaysia. I'm sure William knows what's going on, with that. And of course, my company is pioneering nano-credentialism. Basically, you learn a little bit every day, learn a little bit every day. And then the idea essentially is that you build up knowledge on a continuous basis. So this is what we call continuous learning. Anyway, I'm the type of person that believes that education should be cradle to grave, and that it should be continuous, and that there's no such thing as age limited type of learning. So so I'm all in for that, and I think that's where technology is really driving the industry. It's more towards smaller time scales, essentially.
Mm-hmm. And Prasant, you're part of your company does this. You guys have built a company around this issue. So what are you seeing in addition to new models that have been created thanks to technology that have changed education?
Right. So we're tackling it from a very different point, and I think I'll touch back on Giampaolo. So one of the areas we're tackling is teacher training. So we tied up with one of the largest global publishers in the UK to digitalize their teacher academy and to help teachers basically come into this digital space. And the idea is really to shift away really from just getting certifications to actual implementation. So the idea is to facilitate the learning up to a point. So it goes away from 1 day, 2 days, but to over a period of time, let's say a few weeks, until the actual learning is applied at the workplace. So the application of the workplace is really where we have taken the new model of learning, so that you actually do the work of whatever you have learned. So not just learning, getting certified, but actually doing that work. And so that's what we're doing for teacher training now, so that they're able to take whatever learning and apply it in their lesson plans and the lesson delivery, and then come back and work together in the group.
And Naveen, I want to come to you on this as well. You guys have been investing in this space, but you also been paying a lot of attention to the trends that are happening, not just in India, but globally. What are you seeing as new models that have come out of this?
Well, essentially, in the Indian subcontinent and also globally as well, EdTech space has been occupied by the K-12s, the test preps, online certifications, and outside India, there was focus as well on skill development and other employability related courses. Like I mentioned earlier, since the government has kind of resorted to change its education policy, now there are a lot of startups that are working on solving the skill development issue and matching the learning with. And thus, rather than education, I see in the next 3 to 4 years would be focusing more on what you could apply for work rather than what you could recollect as a memory. So this is what is exactly the change that is happening.
And William, to you as well. I mean, you've just taken over and are working on a new company, but also you're transforming in a university from physical to digital. Where are you seeing these new models being applied, and how may they transform your business?
Yep. I think the society still very much require recognition of certification. That's why all the universities are still there, all right? But what we are trying to do is to shorten that period. Okay, so for example, if you take a degree, it'll take you 3 to 4 years in campus, and maybe you do your internship during summer. Okay, so what we're trying to do is to provide the maybe 50-50. You learn at the same time you can actually start to provide or do something, okay, like internship during your studies. So I give you an example, okay. Nowadays you will come across a new thing called virtual assistant. All right. So instead of hiring a real PA full-time where you can see it as you walk in the office, so and sometimes when you're out of office you don't use that person, right? So a student who is studying business admin, okay, will be able to do that, right? They have 5-hour class a day, and they can actually provide a virtual assistant to certain people around the world, right? Not just in their area. Okay, so we are trying to merge that concept of yes, you learn and then you apply. So it's how do we deploy that technology, okay, where people do not need to go to a physical campus, okay, they can study anywhere in the world. At the same time, they can also make a living already, okay, while they are learning. Okay, you learn, you apply, and you can make money, okay, because if you look at the pandemic, you know that everybody is stuck at home, they need to generate income, right? So we want to create this kind of education mindset. Well, and not just for young people, but for those who lost their jobs, okay, who got retrenched, okay, or who need second income, they need to learn something fast, okay, so that they can straight away use their new skill to generate income. Okay, so this is what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, and I'll just say, just to chime in, I don't. It's pandemic aside, it seems that the way our society has been moving, and how we have been moving in generally on a global scale, is that education needs to be faster, right? We can leverage technology to do that because, again, Tarun's point, going to a 4-year university or even a master's program, 1 to 2 years, or an executive, whatever the program.
Right.
That's a long time. Now there are some places for that. I will allow that. There are some places still in the world for that. But for the most part, you want to get a skill. You want to be able to apply that skill right away so you can learn and make it a skill and not just something you learned. And that's been an issue for many years, where you went to university or you went to any kind of training and all you did was learn, but you didn't necessarily apply. And we're seeing this, as you mentioned, William, more people are starting companies. Giapalo, I see you have a point, and Naveen as well, so I'll come to you in on this in a minute. But we're seeing more people start companies because they want to apply. They want to take what they're learning. I mean, look at coding schools. This is a perfect example. The coding school has started and provides education because people want to learn not just how to code, but how it works, how to apply to it, and actually start doing coding. You don't want to go learn how to code for 4 months and not actually be able to do anything with it. Just as a simple example, right? And same with learning a language. If John Paulo is going to teach me a language right now, one of the things I want to be able to do is communicate with him. I don't want him to lecture me for 4 months and then try to apply it. I'll be useless. So I think what we're starting to see is now this applied to all areas, right? Personal and business. Noble, Naveen, Giapalo, I see all of you have comments. I saw everyone else shaking their head. So Noble, Naveen, we'll start with you. You unmuted first, and Noble, I'll come to you. So Naveen, go ahead.
Yeah, so one of the EdTech startups that I'm helping raise funds now has actually tried to work on this area. Just giving an example, they work with a lot of BFSI, the banking and financial sector industry companies in the country. And they're working in cohorts where they could help students learn the tricks of the trade before even they are getting employed. So what happens is those BFSI institutions get 94% ready employees to absorb as soon as their course becomes complete. Now, what it brings on the table is you get a student fresh out of college. You spend 2 to 3 months of paid time to teach him what is actually he going to do while in office. And what this type of education or the twist in the education system, this new EdTech problem is solving as a problem, is it's saving the companies the learn on the go part, and it's integrating it while the students are studying as well. Now, this also gives a lot of confidence to the students who are also applying for such programs, because 94% has been the placement ratio for such students who applied for such programs. And it just started getting so popular in the country that even World Bank has also started giving grants for such programs, especially for the economical backward sector students. And yes, they are being also brought up into mainstream jobs in the country. I believe learning something that is to be applied well before you're getting onto the job saves a lot of getting engaged to the job, kind of solving problems that way.
Yeah, well, Prasant's point. I mean, Udemy and many others, including his company. I mean, that's what they're thriving on, right? Learn quick, apply, continue to learn, apply, and continue to work and build and do all of your skills. So you're spot on, Gianpaolo. I see you. Don't worry, I'm coming to you. This is all for you. Go for it.
Yes, and I want to see there is an inflection point. I think that the new model of education has to merge information with the traditional learning, because there's a lot of things that will require faster deployment. Again, I'm with you, Kyle, and I guess with everybody else, including our audience, if you have to become, a genetic engineer, or if you have to build a vessel or fly a starship, probably you have to go through the ordeal of the traditional curve courses. But if you, for a lot of other jobs and possibilities that exist in the economy nowadays, most of the way we have deployed culture is way too expensive and expansive. I think it has to be contained, compacted, and again, it has to become a blend, a sort of a cyborg of information and education. The universities and the institutions that will be capable of doing that definitely will have the attention of their catchment area, being the students, because I don't think students anywhere in the world are prepared to pay the tuition fees, especially in the university level, that we have seen. Because from my generation onwards, most people have not been capable of repaying the 300, 400 grants that they have accumulated of debt. They have to do jumbo packages, recombinate, reconsolidate, and they still drag it in their 50s and 60s, still paying those old tuition fees. It used to be good only for the MBAs because, of course, people getting into business and finance had higher salaries, but uneven general practitioners or surgeons have been capable of paying that in most cases. So I think that there's a need for realignment of tuition fees, content. It's really important. And again, technology can do a lot on that.
Well, it all needs to be realigned, right? We can't just try new business models and new models of teaching without it all finally coming together. And with that being said, gentlemen, we are at the top of the hour. We're coming to the lightning round, so I want to come around to get everyone's closing thoughts. There's so much to talk about. So much is happening here. And so I'm sorry we don't have enough time to get into it all, but would love to hear your closing thoughts and maybe one opportunity that investors and entrepreneurs should be aware of and they should be focusing on. And then where everyone can find you online. So Gianpaolo, let's start with you as you finish. Any area of opportunity you would recommend to those paying attention to that they should be looking at? And then where can everyone find you online?
I would just restate what I said a few minutes ago, the 4 critical areas around which technology could be deployed. And in those areas, technology companies can find, I would say, market share, followers, investors, and customer base. And you can reach me on www.gianpaoloparigi.com, so my personal website, or on LinkedIn. Thank you, everyone, for having me here. Kyle, thank you for this, and I'll leave you with as many of us.
Thank you very much as well, Gianpaolo. William, to you, area of opportunity, and then where can everyone find you online?
Okay, if you ask me the real opportunity, I brainstormed with a friend of mine who is in education for the last 30 years. He teach English. Okay, he started teaching English when he is 20 years old, and he do it through radio. So every weekend he has a half an hour airtime. Okay, and from then on, for 6 years he's doing that, and then he started a tuition center in English. And last weekend, we were looking at a few case study, and we are thinking how to deploy English language teaching to children in China, because where the money is always where the parents are very much willing to spend on their children. Okay, so if you ask me where should we invest and which part, currently we are looking at the children education sector. Okay, and how to deploy it with technology. So we are not into the opening up more tuition center, but we're using technology to reach to them. Okay, you can reach me at William Du, okay, on LinkedIn. All right, so that's my handle. All right, thank you very much.
Wonderful, thank you. Noble, to you. Quick opportunity, and where can everyone find you online?
Yeah, easy to find me online. It's Noble Dracone on LinkedIn. I always tell people to reach out to me there, or Twitter, Dracone, which is my last name. And I think the opportunity really falls actually on some of the most mundane areas. In the US, we have a huge shortage in plumbers, electricians, contractors, along the spectrum. And that's become actually almost to the point of where it's a pandemic, where everyone's focused on interacting with learning how to code and program. Even my 9-year-old is learning how to use Python. But there's really a whole swath of necessities that are missing. And so we've been looking in those areas to be either the financiers for people who are buying franchises, and or looking at opportunities to actually expedite some of that education, because to become an electrician now takes almost 5 years to get there. So I think that there's a whole swath of education and opportunities and just regular old blue collar jobs.
Absolutely. And again, guys, we are over now the top of the hour, so I do want to come quickly around to everyone else to make sure we get your closing thoughts in. Naveen, quick opportunity, and where can everyone find you?
Well, our report says 2021, India's online education market is going to be close to $2 billion. That's what I would like to say. You could reach out to me on my company website, ahventures.in. That's rventures.in. My LinkedIn handle is Naveen Tekwani. Interesting startup mandates. Do come and invest over there. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much as well. Tarun, to you.
Well, I guess I don't have much to say aside from what I've said, so I'll just give my personal information where you can find me. So my handle is Sakani. That's for LinkedIn, for Twitter, and pretty much a lot of other social media. I'm frequently found on LinkedIn, so that's my preferred channel. My website is abundant.com. My personal website is tsakani.com. Yeah.
There you go. And Prasant, thank you for joining us for your first time today. And last but not least, close us out. Quick opportunity. Where can everyone find you online?
So the opportunity for us is not in content. We say content is free, and applying or facilitating context on the content is where the opportunity is, and that's where we are focused on. And you can find us on Wiztango. That's our website, wiztango.com. And thank you very much, Kyle, for having us here.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for sharing your thoughts and insights. To our audience, thank you as well for tuning in. As you heard, all of our investors are available online, and we'd love to continue the conversation with you. Also, if you like what you heard, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Also, do reach out if you'd like to be on a show like today. Also, a shout out and a thank you to Elena and to the entire LATOKEN team for making VCTV possible every single day. I'm Kyle Ellicott, your host. You can find me everywhere online at Kyle Ellicott. And we'll be back here tomorrow with more episodes of VCTV. Take care, everybody. Have a good day.